Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting here with the beautiful Moipone Molethlanyii. I've had the pleasure of meeting her this week and actually seeing her behind the scenes. She moves mountain. She carries heavy loads. And she's one of the leaders that I'm proud to have actually met and know that she comes from South Africa. Sisi unjani? I'm okay. We're not going to be long. I know that you've had a very busy week and you've had just your best, event in Gqeberha. Tell me, when you came to Gqeberha, how did it feel like? How are you feeling compared to how you feel now? Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Olwam. I really appreciate this platform, and I think more than anything, coming here was a sense of excitement because of all that I've heard from people that are from Gqeberha, and if anything, the fact that it's called a friendly city, for me experiencing it is absolutely true. People have values of Ubuntu, people have values of Batubili, people have values of compassion. And that's what has come through, whether I was meeting a Uber driver or I was meeting the lady who gave me a milkshake at the airport, or Umama who was assisting us last Sihlala Khona. Like different demographics, different gender, different ages, different backgrounds, but I could sense a meaningful humanity from each of the individuals that I met when I got here. So yeah, definitely stuck with me.
Yeah, and we've had a few conversations. One of those conversations is that you have been in service of a number of political leaders in their governmental roles, and you've also, in your current life, also are leading in driving a program. During this political program and elections that we are going into. I don't want to say it myself, but I want you to state, what are you currently busy with?
So currently busy with a very interesting project of very capable, competent, and compassionate men and women who are in an organization called Change Starts Now. And it's so refreshing and such a privilege for me as a young person to be part of this, because I am experiencing on a daily basis what it means like to be leaders without titles. So every day I see people that are willing to go out there, engage with South Africans, and get them to really think about what it is that we're trying to envision and build together. So the part about this being a collective effort is something that definitely comes through in what we're doing as a project. Now, just to take you back as to what is it that I could definitely say sticks out or is distinguishable with what we're doing now versus maybe the other projects that I've been a part of, is I've worked in governance, I've worked with different political principles, and I think what I'm seeing here is a kind of movement that isn't centered around one individual and that isn't centered around one character or personality. It really is a collective of men, women who are not just professionals, but fathers, mothers, aunts, sisters that want to see something change, because everybody's talking about it, but not a lot of people are willing to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty, but someone has to do it.
Thank you. And then one of the questions that came out today was around the question of, the vulnerability of women. I would like for you to address that question, but I also want you to pick one other question that you feel like you could have actually addressed maybe in depth, and if possible, even tell us why some of these questions are important to you as a person.
Olwam, one of the questions that I think we most certainly need to really apply our minds to, not just as Change Starts Now, but as South Africans, is the question around, the young man said, I feel that everyone is having a question around young people and conversations around young people. How do we empower young people? But I'm 35. And it seems like I'm not featuring in any of these conversations. So where do we stand? And previously, where I was in a government, in a local government setting, I kept hearing the same thing, because you would know there's something called EIDPs, which is Integrated Development Planning Meetings. So legislatively, you're supposed to go across the jurisdiction that you're in charge of and listen to people and ensure that what their aspirations are feature in your annual document in a plan that you're providing. So I've heard this all across the different jurisdictions or governments that I've worked in, and that is, I'm 35, I'm 38, I'm 40, I'm 42, and I have the added responsibility of being a father, a mother, and with it is all the other responsibilities that come, or burdens, if I may put it that way. So what happens when I am not a beneficiary of targeted empowerment by government? Do I not feature in this conversation? And so I would have most certainly said this is something that we need to acknowledge, that is there, it's a gap, and I think there's room for all of us creatively to think about how do we resolve it. So with this young man who asked this question, I would have put it to him, what do you have at your disposal to make a difference? Because the last gentleman who asked me that, when I threw that question back to him, he said, you know what, I've actually identified a gap in my community where Abokoko sometimes are so tired and they don't have the means to go and fetch medication at the local clinic. So I'm going to create a register and I'll make sure that I record everything properly. I'm going to get a bike, obviously through, a community assistance. He got that bike, and so on a monthly basis, he goes and gets that medication, and there's an additional fee that he charges. But in that case, he's able to feed his family, and he's also able to resolve a very critical issue in the community. And hence I kept saying that the answer lies within us. I really don't see it coming from anywhere else. And so that paradigm shift is where things will start to change the conversation.
Moi, what is a leader to you?
A person who embodies what they believe, and a person who lives it out in all that they do, and most importantly, a person who's willing to admit that they can never have all the answers. And so listening is a non-negotiable if you're a real leader.
As you close, someone is thinking about going to vote or not. Encourage someone that doesn't want to vote. What do you tell them?
Encourage someone that doesn't want to vote?
Yes.
Sure.
What do you tell them, especially this time around?
I had such a difficult conversation this morning with my little sister, because at the end of the day, NSFAS has once again rejected her application, and so it was, oh Sponi, what am I going to do? I have no plan. And so you have a generation of young people that are coming from households where there really is very limited means, and we know that there's a cap on their household income from their parents or their guardians, and so we call them the missing middle. And so again, we see this coming up, and I asked her, what do you think you can do? What do you think is the solution? Have you done everything in your power? And so I think it's so difficult at this stage of our country's future to say nothing is happening if you don't get up and do something about it. I do not see the solution coming from anywhere else other than ourselves. And I always say, give it one last shot. Give it one last shot. My mother always says, I just die once. Do it. Do it and see what actually happens. Because we are at a point where it is such a critical conjuncture in the road. Something's going to happen. And when you think of that one day your future children or siblings are going to ask you, what did you do at that point? And the burden of having that question and not being able to answer it appropriately will be on you. So I would urge someone who's our age and to really think about, what does this mean? If not voting, what do you have to lose at this point? I think we've already lost enough. Something has got to change. And I said to you the other day, you cannot fall when you're already on the floor. You cannot go any lower. So we really need to think about that. Thanks.
Imbogoto, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
And thank you for reflecting. I know that we didn't have much time. I really want to spend an hour with you and find out, when we have time, more about your upbringing as well and how you've actually come to the person that you are today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks,
More
guys.
everyone. Bye-bye.